I'm very conscious over the last few days I've done nothing but moan on this channel, and realistically the whole premise of this channel was we'd have a little bit of a laugh about West Ham. I'm sure and hopefully we'll do that at some point in the future, but I'm afraid because the circus is back in town, I've got another moan and another rant today, so apologies, but I just think it's bad news. I'm quite worried about the whole escalation of everything at West Ham over the last few days. The latest one is an interview which Tim Steidten has given to Sky Germany. It does not make for good reading. You're not going to like what you hear now, and if you read between the lines, I think it's very, very clear that you have a man that's unhappy in his role, would certainly like to join Liverpool, and is not speaking in terms beyond the end of this season. That's for sure. I also think that I'm a little bit concerned about how he was very, very quiet for the first time when he joined West Ham, and now he's done 2 interviews in the space of just over a week. Let me tell you what he said, and then we'll get into crunching down what's happening, because I'm very, very upset by this, and I think. Look, if you feel yesterday, I'd turn my attentions from David Moyes to the ownership, and that's because I had. And I think there's nothing left to say about David Moyes at the moment. I think he's a manager under pressure. I think he's only got 2 or 3 months left on his contract, and I just wasn't happy with a number of things, as I mentioned yesterday, the kicking the can down the road with David Moyes, the complete and utter indecision from the club, the 2 very stale and very dated managerial candidates which were chucked in front of us as well, which smacked of a very old portfolio. And also I think the other thing that I was not impressed with at all was the way that the fans were spoken about as well. So of course the ownership is going to come in to highlight, but they always have delayed, they always have dithered and dallied. I think the biggest problem they've got is not everybody works to their schedule, not everybody works at their pace, and I think in Tim Steidten you have an ambitious man who's really quite keen to plough ahead with his career. And I also think it is absolutely ridiculous that West Ham United would not look. Let me just get this straight. Yesterday there were a load of reports that came out that Tim Steidten was going to be crucial in choosing the next West Ham manager. What I'm going to read now, which are quotes directly from Tim Steidten, you tell me afterwards if you think that's the case, because I certainly don't. And it's not for me to poo-poo the news that came out from ex-West Ham United employee. I've spoken about him lots on this channel over the past few months. I think a lot. He got so much of the stuff right over the transfer window. I think his contacts are good, and I don't doubt that he has been told this. I just don't believe it to be true. And I'm not looking to poo-poo Gio's video yesterday that he did about this. A lot has happened since Gio recorded that video. He probably recorded that 24 hours ago now. So I just think a lot's happened now, and now I am far from convinced. And it's not just the managerial candidates, by the way, which we'll get into that a little bit later. Let hear what Tim Steidten has had to say. He said, "I've heard I'm supposed to be on the list at Liverpool. It's one of the biggest clubs in the world, so it's an honour. But so far, nobody from Liverpool Football Club has contacted me yet." It's the so far and the yet. I mean, it does not sound good. And look, I am guilty, very guilty of looking at little things that people say and nitpicking and picking little parts out of it. Sometimes when you're not given much information, that's all you have to do. By the time I've finished quoting Tim Steidten on this, you will not think I'm nitpicking. I think there's enough in here. He said, I generally feel very comfortable at West Ham. Generally means not totally, doesn't it? That's what generally means. Because you would say, I completely love it at West Ham. I generally enjoy doing these videos. I generally like eating at that restaurant down there. It's not, saying the word generally is not a convincing thing to say at all. I generally enjoy watching West Ham. You probably wouldn't say that, would you? I quickly realised how intense this league is. This is Tim again now. Accordingly, we signed the right players in the last transfer. He's referring to the summer transfer window. I think that's quite key as well. He's saying, we signed the right players in the transfer window, the summer one. What's he not saying? What he's not saying is we didn't sign the right... We're saying we didn't sign the right players in the winter transfer window. This squad is strong, it's not, so we can achieve our goals. I'm looking forward to facing the next few weeks and months. Not next season, not the long-term project, nothing like that. The next few months until, that's what he says, I'm looking forward to facing the next few months, weeks and months until the end of the season. Of course, we're already planning for the next window. What happens to the future, we will see. So let's just get this right. Within that, he said, we'll have to wait and see what happens in the future. I'm planning for the next few weeks and months until the end of the season. His words, until the end of the season. I generally feel very comfortable at West Ham. The last transfer window was strong, the summer one. It's a great honour to be linked with Liverpool. Nobody from the club has contacted me yet. Well, that ain't good, is it? Do you know what? I do not blame him at all. If I were Tim Steidten, and I've been learning my trade at Werder Bremen, I'd learnt my trade at Leverkusen. He was heavily involved in bringing the players in there. They're top of the league. And whether you think he was first or second in charge at Leverkusen, and he probably was second in charge, he would have played some process in bringing Xabi Alonso into Leverkusen. He would have been some part in it. At the very least, he witnessed how it was done. Why we would not let this guy have total control of bringing in an ex-manager, I do not know. But that's probably what he thought was going to happen when he came to West Ham. He probably thought he was going to be allowed to select players and bring them in. Go back. So I don't blame him. He's probably looking at this, what's his name, Paulo Fonseca. He's probably thinking, no. This guy here is not the future. Look, I covered him a little bit the other day. Fonseca is... I've got to be careful what I say here. Fonseca is a choice of the board, and he has been for quite some time. And I'm sure there are very good reasons for that. But Fonseca is not an elite level manager. West Ham, I think West Ham have got... I might have this slightly wrong, but if I'm only out by one or two. I'm generally, what I'm saying is right. West Ham, I think, have got the 14th highest wage bill in world football. All right? That means, and by the way, we've got the second biggest stadium in the Premier League. We've got a European trophy. Look, we're a big club. Can we go out and get Pep Guardiola? No. But we should be looking at the top 20 coaches in the world. There's no reason that we can't go out and do that. The best up-and-coming coach should be coming to West Ham. All right? What I'm saying to you here is that Paulo Fonseca is not one of those. He's doing okay. But a lot of people talk about his win percentage, and I was a little bit worried to hear noises coming out of the club. Oh, look at Paulo Fonseca's win percentage. I don't know why the club are saying. I don't know why. There's sources close to the club. Let's put it that way. Maybe not directly the club themselves, right? But clearly, the club have got this guy. They're eyeing up this guy. Fonseca's win percentage is completely boosted by Shakhtar Donetsk in the Ukrainian league. Look, Shakhtar won the league all the time before Fonseca went in there. They won the league all the time whilst Fonseca was in there, and they've continued to win the league whilst after Fonseca's left. His win percentage has been completely boosted by there. If you want to know what Fonseca's doing, he's fifth in the French league. It's not a remarkable achievement. They just got kicked out of the cup by Olympique Lyonnais, who've been battling relegation all season. At their last 5 games, I think it's something like they've won 2 of them. They're doing okay. They've won 2. They've drawn a couple, or they've lost a couple. It's average stuff at best. It really is. They're up into 5th, but that is not remarkable. The remarkable thing is what the clubs are doing above that. The remarkable thing's a club. Is it Girona? I think it is up in Syria. Sorry, not in Syria. In La Liga, who was second. Michel is the coach there. He is a remarkable up and coming coach. If you want to go and get a Portugueser, go and get the geezer at Sporting Lisbon. He's doing a remarkable job. This guy is a journeyman. I'm not saying he's bad, but he is a journeyman. You do not get Tim Steidten in to get Paulo Fonseca. You just don't. So he's probably looking and thinking, if I'm going to stay at West Ham, I want to get a manager in who I'm going to be able to work closely with. So let him go and help with the selection process. Do you think, by reading that statement, he's part of it? I think it's hard to read that statement and think... look, if Tim Steidten is part of the next recruitment process for the manager, Tim Steidten certainly doesn't know about it. This Fonseca stuff certainly doesn't suggest it. And if I was him, I'd be pretty peeved about that. I'd also be pretty peeved about what happened in the last transfer window. I think he probably did make a mistake. I probably think he did start negotiating with the wrong agent, and that ain't great. But I do think we know we've got someone that's learning on the job to a certain extent, and I also think that's not a mistake he'll ever make again. we've all made mistakes, right? I don't think he should be sort of hung, drawn and quartered because of it. And we've got to decide whether we want a technical director or not. Because what actually happened was he apparently identified lots of different players. But the one he really tried to push on was Ibrahim Osman, who now has gone and signed for Brighton. In the end, the chairman pulled the plug. Imagine being that. Imagine being the director of football. You're brought in to recruit players. We have a problem position on the left-hand side, and boy, do we have a problem position on the left-hand side. It's plain and clear for all to see. Tim Steidten's director of football has gone to the club and said, this is the guy that can solve the problem. David Sullivan pulled the plug on the deal. Imagine doing all your hard work and your boss doing that. Would that make you want to stay? Forget football. Would that make you want to stay at a company? No, of course it wouldn't. Of course it wouldn't. And then they're not going to involve him in the recruitment of the manager. Look, it's pretty bad. I don't read that statement, and I think Tim Steidten ain't here next season. I think that's the natural thing to do, to read that statement. I think for you to think he's going to be here next season, you have to be a real optimist. Excuse me, I'm going to drink my tea. I've been talking a lot. Excuse me. What it does leave us with is it leaves us with a really big problem, and unfortunately, let me finish the video on quite a depressing note. Actually, what do I think is going to happen at West Ham at the moment? And look, my opinion can change. We all know this. When I get new evidence, my opinion can change. I've read this statement from Tim Steidten, and my opinion on that has changed since yesterday. You should, but I find it. Honestly, I do not find it a problem to change my opinion at all. I think you should do so. When new facts come to light, you've got to really try and have a little look and think, what's going on here? And I think this is a concern. Yesterday, Tim Steidten was meant to be leading the dance in terms of getting a new manager in today. I don't think so. However, what do I think is going to happen at West Ham? And this is what I can see happening here. I can see us kicking a can down the road with David Moyes, and I can see we get the worst of all worlds. Actually, we end up pissing the fans off. We end up pissing David Moyes off. We end up pissing Tim Steidten off, and we actually end up with a situation next season where we get a manager in, which is the choice of the board. Might not even be as good as David Moyes, by the way, in terms of results. Do not think, there's no guarantee that whoever comes in next season gets European football or even, is even able to do anything differently. They might play a brand of football that's prettier on the eye, but it might not be great. But I'm not sure the board overly concerned about that. I'm really surprised, by the way, as I said before, that the people that own major shares in the club wield such low influence that Kretinsky is not involved in this. I'd have been on the phone. If I was Kretinsky, I'd have been on the phone to Sullivan saying, what the hell's going on? Why are fans leaving the stadium? What's going on? What's going on here? Why am I reading in the press that the director of football wants to leave? Maybe this is all a power play from Tim Steidten, by the way. Maybe that's what it is. But I tell you what, if things keep playing out as they are, here's what I think may happen next season. We'll find David Sullivan's pick as manager in the role, and you'll find David Sullivan back in position as director of football, leading the dance and choosing the players that we sign. Because I tell you what, if he signs another manager, he will make it clear that manager is not signing the players. And I think that's the problem we're going to have. And I think very much the circus will be back in town. I'm not saying this to be sensationalistic. I'm saying it because I believe that this is the path we are heading down. Now, there is a way to avoid this immediately and avoid it now. But David Sullivan must realise that not everybody is working to his schedule. They're not. These people, particularly like Tim Steidten, they're young, they're ambitious, and they have ideas, and they have them now. Give the guy his legs. Stop swiping out his legs from underneath him. Let him provide a list of candidates for the next manager. Let him explain why they're the best ones. Be it the guy in Spain who has done remarkable things at his previous two clubs, and now he's actually ahead of Barcelona, tiny club ahead of Barcelona, second in La Liga. Let him explain why. Maybe the guy at Leipzig is the right choice. Maybe why the guy at Sporting Lisbon. Sorry, I'm not an expert in this stuff. I don't really know about these managers. What I do know is a little 20 minutes on Google told me an awful lot of things and gave me an awful lot of list of names. But I wouldn't expect Steidten to know to be using Google. I expect him to know this stuff, and I'm sure he does. And let him explain to David Sullivan why these guys are important. Let somebody explain to David Sullivan that just because Fonseca once had an interview with Tottenham and won some league titles in the Ukraine does not make him a good fit for West Ham, even though he may well be, in terms of aesthetically, football maybe better than David Moyes. Not maybe, it is. But I'll tell you now, even tactics have already moved on from what Fonseca was doing. I mean, well, I say he's not even a young up-and-coming manager. He's 50. He's not the best young up-and-coming manager in France. So I'm not entirely sure why we'd be looking to do that. But anyway, so I'm getting caught up on him because it's annoyed me a bit, as I'm sure you noticed. Give Steidten the chance. Ask him. Say to him, I'm gonna give you this. I'm gonna let you run all footballing things. Please, turn down Liverpool if they come in. Work closely with Mark Noble. We'll get a manager in who you recommend to us, and then at least Tim Steidten can sit down with his new manager and say, here's a squad. Have a little look at the squad. What players you want, and I'll get them in for you. It really is that simple, and I do think that's the path forward for West Ham. That is the way forward. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, the way things are, I think we're about to go backwards.